Hello, welcome back to episode 383 of Sree's Sunday New York Times Read Along. We're back after taking a few weeks off for the holidays. Our host, of course, is Sree Srinivasan. My name is Neil Parekh. I am the executive producer. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our Digimentors website. Please like, comment, share, retweet, do all of the things that you do to share this show with folks. We're great. So glad to be back. Want to do a special shout out to everyone watching the replay because you're usually getting these first opening comments. Thank you for taking the time to come back and watch the show when it's more convenient to you. We have a lot of content to cover today. We had planned on, there was enough with the shooting in Minnesota by that ICE officer, last week's attack and kidnapping of Nicolas Maduro, and the 2-hour interview that President Trump gave to the New York Times. Well, just last night, we saw that the New York Times published their 8-page report on Ukraine, the separation, America's partnership with Ukraine unravels. We have the PDF on our website, so you can go there and download that. We'll also take a look at the report later today in the show. Our sponsors, of course, are Muck and Graphic History Company. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of the support. The show is produced by Digimentors, the consulting firm that Sree set up with his good friend Andrew Lee. I'm proud to be a vice president of events and communications. And we want to make sure that you know, as far as the Graphic History Company is concerned, you can sign up for updates at graphichistorycompany.com. They will be releasing volume 2 of the Graphic History of Hip Hop this year. We have so many people watching. We'll say a few quick hellos. Ted Coltman is watching from Washington, D.C. on YouTube. Ted, thank you for joining us. Doug Levy is wishing us a good morning from near San Francisco, 5:30 a.m. Pacific time for this longtime radio hand. Is not an issue at all. Patricia Freudenberg, grace and greetings from New York. Deborah Kerr is back. She was traveling, I know, but she's back and saying hello from Fort Lauderdale. Jonathan Borstein is watching from the East Village. Thank you, Jonathan. Paula Tiger, long-term producer of the show, watching from Tallahassee. Pragnya Haldapur saying good morning from Silver Spring. And we have someone else watching on YouTube, Charisse. Charisse, thank you for joining us on YouTube. If you're a longtime viewer and first-time commenter, please let us know. But it's great that you found us, and great that you joined the show. Of course, we are online live almost every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, except for holidays and such. Let's bring on our host, Sree Srinivasan. Sree, good to see you. It's been a while. Oh,
great to see you, and Happy New Year, Neil. We have officially gone past the day in which Larry David allows us to wish people Happy New Year. He says January 7th is the cutoff for Happy New Year. So I'd like to hear from our audience. Do you agree with Larry David that you shouldn't be doing Happy New Year after January 11th? What is your point of view on this, Neil?
Happy New Year, Sree.
Okay, so you're not a Larry David enthusiast on this topic, at least. I don't know about others. Folks, let's hear what you think. We have a great show for you. We have so much going on. If you're coming to us in the new year after having not seen us for a while, we've revamped the show and we have made it a 1-hour show instead of 90 minutes. We will have guests occasionally. And we are also available as a podcast. Many of you have been asking for the last 10 years, over the last 10 years, have been asking for this. And now we're able to bring this to you. We are live, not live, but we are available as an audio podcast on Spotify. Just look for Sree Sunday New York Times Read Along, as well as on Apple podcast. So we're on both the biggest platforms now, and we would love for you to rate us and share us there as well. And every time you comment there, we benefit, as well as obviously all your comments here too. Tell us how your Sunday is going. Tell us where you're watching from in the world. We have so many folks who are joining us, and we love doing the show for you. What we do is we read the times, and then we talk about what's going on, and we read your comments on the air, something that you can't really do if you're watching CNN or any other television show, because we can make it really interactive. And we want to hear from you. We also want to tell you that I've just finished sending out my latest newsletter. It's called A Country Adrift, and it's about the US caused chaos inside the US government caused chaos inside the US and outside. And we'll cover obviously a lot of that as well. Our podcasts on this, the webcast you do here with the read along, as well as the newsletter, have always been free and available to everybody. But we have turned on our paywall option for the newsletter, Neil, as you know. And we did that because so many of you had pledged to support us if we turn that paywall option on. The core newsletter, which Neil will show you, is at sreenet.substack.com, will remain free and available to everyone, but the bonus content will be for paid folks who have the paid subscription. So we are hoping that you will join us and consider paying for a subscription there. And Neil can also show you our bonus that we did on Substack Live with David Shedd, who is former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency and a former CIA and Foreign Service officer. And on Wednesday, we interviewed him. We have that bonus content available for free right now on sreenet.substack.com. We hope you will take a look and, of course, continue to support us. Thank you. And let's get to the newspaper and what we're
Sure.
talking about. I do want to say, Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say one clarification about our putting the episodes on podcast on Spotify and Apple Play. The interesting thing is on Spotify, you actually have the option to watch the video or listen to the audio on Spotify. You can switch back and forth as you wish. So just wanted to make sure people knew that.
Oh, absolutely. I knew that's a feature available, but I didn't think our podcast qualified yet. So that's a good sign. So thank you for
Yeah,
every rating, every view, every download helps us with that. And also, if you figure that we both have a face for radio, then you just switch to the audio track and you can do that. So here's today's paper, and I want to explain this. What happens, as some of you know, is that if you get a New York Times or most newspapers, you'll have a label on there, and I don't want to put my home address on the internet like this, so I normally try to peel it off very gently. And today the glue was sticking a lot more than usual, so when I pulled it, the whole thing came off. So this is not the fault of the New York Times that it looks like this. And we also want to clarify that this show is not only about the New York Times; it's about fighting misinformation, disinformation, and we want you to support any newspaper, your local newspaper, wherever you live in the world. Please pay for a newspaper. It doesn't have to be print. Many places print newspapers aren't available, but please support journalism because it makes a difference. So let's just quickly look at the headlines here. It says Trump superstar judges backed him 133 to 12 in 2025. On appeals, jurists appointed by President lean towards defending his agenda. That's not leaning towards his agenda, as you can see there. We also this story is the lead, but what Neil was talking about is the special 8-page story, The Separation. And Neil, if you can just tell us again how everybody here can get the PDF for free, which is not available on the internet, but is available through us. Talk about that.
absolutely. So we shared earlier in the intro the Ukraine special report, The Separation, America's Partnership with Ukraine Unravels, is available on our website as a PDF for a free download. We can offer this to you through our special relationship with the New York Times. Hat tip to our good friend Tom Jolly, the print editor, who has been on the show 3 times so far, and Wayne Camadoy, who is the art director. It is a celebration. I'll build on what you were saying earlier, Sree. It's not just about the New York Times, but we really do celebrate print journalism and all of the benefits of that. We will show online versions of articles when it's warranted, but we certainly celebrate print, and we're so glad that we're able to share this with you. Sree is kind of showing it on the screen, and we'll certainly get to it later in the program. I will
Yeah.
also put the link in the comments for people who are watching.
When we have lots of people watching, and Ted says Happy New Year is good anytime until it is really happy. So that's nice. Mary C. Curtis, longtime friend and guest on the show and collaborator, says my pet peeve is folks who take the tree and decorations down before the feast of the Epiphany. Where will the Magi go? That's interesting. So this is getting into serious celebration
That's
Christmas. Go ahead, Neil.
That's January 6th is
Mhm.
as when the Feast of the Epiphany would be. But what's also interesting is some people leave up their decorations until Orthodox Christmas, which I'm looking for the date right now, but usually that's around that same time.
So
Uh,
Larry David's
or
not too wrong. He says January 7th for
January 7th
he says that is
is
the
that's
yeah,
Orthodox Christmas.
yeah.
One note, Sri, just while we're chatting, you were talking about the front page earlier.
Mhm.
If you put that up, hold that up again, just the front page, and open it up, there are actually only 4 stories on the front page today. Um, Depending on the edition you got, I
Oh
see
yeah.
5,
I
right?
five. Yeah,
So
five. Yeah.
the updated version that
Mhm.
came out this morning
Mhm.
actually replaces the story about Venezuela that's there
Mhm.
with the story about the ICE shooting in Minnesota.
Mhm.
And they knocked something else off as well. So there are only 4 in the final edition,
Mhm.
which Tom Jolly told me is actually it used to be a rule that they would always have 5 stories, but this week is only 4 in the final edition.
Wow. And this is, of
Just a
course,
tidbit.
The New York City edition that arrives
Early,
here on our desk. I mean, outside our door at about 4:30 in the morning. A
yeah.
shout out to all the amazing folks who bring the newspaper to you, not just at the New York Times or at the printing plants, but the delivery men and women who brave the cold winters to be able to do that. We encourage, obviously, comments coming in like this from our friend Chris Gorman at the Museum of the City of New York. They have some amazing exhibitions coming up. And Chris, we want to talk to you about making sure all our audiences know about what you're doing. But we also then get folks who can comment on anything they like. And we're going to remove this comment, but I do want to show it to you that there is no level of hate or trolling that you won't find on the internet that doesn't appear here as well. Here is at Bible Thumper saying, living with whites is not a human right. By God, we'll have our home again. This is part of the white Christian nationalist agenda to attack folks of color and others. And so this could be because we're both men of color. It could be because we're both Indian American. It is very disturbing to see, but I'm showing it to all of you because I want you to know that you keep hearing about kind of anti-Indian hate and all of this stuff, but you can see it here as well. So Bible Thumper, you're going to hell, I'm sorry to tell you, and I'm sending you to internet hell right now by taking you off and blocking you. But this is totally unacceptable and unfortunate that this is there.
Thank you for saying that, Sri. It took me a while, frankly, when I saw the comment, just to wrap my head around it. Living with whites is not a huge. It didn't even occur to me that that was something someone would say. I'm still trying to figure that out. But
Yeah, it should have come with a trigger warning. But
right, well, a trigger warning and an essay explaining what they're actually talking about.
exactly. But imagine taking the Bible or any book, any of the good books, any of the holy books, and then using it to justify hate is absolutely unacceptable. Susan, I pay for the local paper right now. Honestly, I dumped the New York Times when I realized that all they do is create false equivalency for Trump and his cronies. So let's address that, Neil, as well. Thank you, Susan.
Sure.
Very serious comment from you. We've had guests on the show criticize the New York Times with us, including our friend Raj Goyal, who is running for New York State Comptroller. We should have him back at some point to talk about his campaign. But he and others have pointed out how often the New York Times, especially on the opinion pages, has written things or appears to be kind of saying, that false equivalency, or, on the one hand, on the other hand, the most famous example, of course, is that Tom Cotton essay during the pandemic, when
Yeah.
during the riots, he basically called for federal agents to come out and take away the protesters. By the way, that's now happening in our cities in its own way. So what he called for is already happening. But the point here is, we do this because we believe the New York Times. If we believe that everything it did was terrible, everything it did was wrong and unfair, we would not be doing the read along. We'd call it the news read along, and we'd read other things, and we just kind of make it less. We make it more generic, Neil. But we are doing it this way because we believe that the Times, most of the journalists, I mean, all the journalists there are trying to cover a confusing, fast changing world. Do they get things wrong? Absolutely. Do they frame things uncomfortably? Yes. Do they do things that we wish they would write about in a different way? Yes. But I believe that the New York Times, at its heart, is doing the right thing most of the time. And that I couldn't say that necessarily for almost anything, right? That where things are, nobody gets everything right all the time. Uh, but we want you, if you don't pay for the Times, that's absolutely fine. This is not a show praising the Times. It's about critiquing and reading the Times. And so we are comfortable still doing the show, even though we have been called out multiple times asking, why do we do the show? Why are we, in a sense, platforming the New York Times? The hilarity of that question, of course, is that the New York Times doesn't need us in any way. They're doing fine, and they're doing great financially. So we're not platforming the New York Times. We are examining, looking at, critiquing, evaluating the news through the lens of the New York Times. And when there is criticism, we put it on the air, we address it, and we often agree with the criticism. Neil, your thoughts?
I couldn't agree with you more, Sree. I think that I think people should understand the depth of our relationship with the New York Times, not necessarily as an institution or as a company, but as a journalistic enterprise. On the one hand, it's something that you and I both grew up with, and I've shared multiple times that I grew up reading the New York Times, being from New York, getting that blue bag on our driveway every day. My dad was an avid reader, everyone in my family, and my dad, in fact, he passed away 16 years ago. One of his last wishes was to have a Sunday New York Times in his casket when he was cremated. On the other end of that, we also are very fierce about our feelings about the New York Times. Even just in the last, not the last show, but the show before that, I talked about the special report that the New York Times did on India and the CIA leaving a nuclear device on top of in the Himalayas, and contrasted that with what I remember seeing growing up, years and years of Orientalist coverage of India, where the only articles you would find were of women washing their clothes on the by the rocks, and monkeys in temples, and all sorts of ways in which India was othered, and people were made to feel bad about themselves. And I did say that I wonder about coverage of other cultures. I try to have a better appreciation now when I see an article about Japan or a country in Africa, etc. Is that is that a true representation, or is that a selective look at a culture? There had been a lot to criticize the New York Times about over the last several years. At the same time, I think it is still the paper of record. It is the number one newspaper in the United States, and potentially, you can argue the world. It is the standard that everyone measures itself against from a, I would say, news perspective. Argue with the editorial side all you want, and there's a lot to argue about what they do with their editorial, not their in-house editorials, but their columns and columnists, and trying to broaden their voices. But there's just a lot that we feel very strongly about the New York Times in both directions, and I think that's why we embrace it so much.
Sure. And because my name is on the show, Neil, I get a lot of direct attacks
Of
about
course,
from friends about this. And if I can just make a comment, not about the Times, but related to progressives and liberals. By the way, how much purple can you take? I know this is early for some of you. This might be too much purple. Neil has said that one day we will find out. We'll let's find out when National Purple Day is, and then he'll also wear purple, and that day our readership will plummet if we're both wearing purple. But just to say that how I look at it with the Democrats and Republicans in this country, Republicans, as long as the three, four things are in a candidate, they will go all the way in with that candidate, right? God, guns, abortion. Those three things are there, and taxes. They'll do anything the candidate wants. Democrats have a list that's 20 to 25 items long. And if you don't meet 20 of them, you're not going to get the love. And there's a famous line about this that Republicans fall in line while Democrats fall in love. And when you fall in love, you can also fall out of love. And that becomes a problem. So this is emblematic of how folks will get angry about something when they don't realize how much worse all the other alternatives are. And that's an interesting way of kind of framing this. Yeah, here is New York Times is fake news, and there are some other things in there that we're not going to show. And Neil, we should ban that person because they're saying all kinds of terrible things. And Kaveri, a former guest, great author, watching from Ireland. We love that. Says this is a very good thing to keep in mind, Neil.
sorry, Sree, I was gonna let you know breaking news. Carvery is, I don't know if she's, I think she's already here. She's going to be in Philadelphia for the semester. She's teaching. She's there for a program. I don't know if she's actually already here yet or if she's on her way. But Carvery, thank you very much for your kind comments. Appreciate it.
And Susan says, I appreciate the perspective. Thank you. And this is that back and forth that we all need to survive this complete insanity that we're living in. And somebody had a great line that said, when you were saying, you couldn't figure out what exactly you were looking at, somebody said, Neil, you can't figure out nonsense. So don't worry about it. Naomi says, lovely to see you again, my friends. May this newish year bring hope and joy. Rhode Island in the house. Rhode Island, go Rhode Island. We have a lot of friends in Rhode Island, and we of course know that Rhode Island was grieving and still is over the shooting at Brown University, and then the related shooting in BU. I mean, sorry, at MIT of an MIT professor. Why I mentioned BU is that my son graduated from BU, lived a few streets from where that shooting happened, and he said there is no way this is a routine crime, because crime like that does not happen in that neighborhood. And he was absolutely right. It turned out to be connected to the Brown shooting. This was a former classmate of that MIT professor, so it's very it's all kind of connected. But thank you. And I see Mark Anthony is asking if I'm from New York because he has seen me. And I think he said later in one of the comments on the sidewalk. So thank you. This is how the internet works. It's in person and on the internet. Let's look
He
at
says,
some.
Sree, this is the crosswalk guy. So I don't know. I know where.
Thank you. Pragya says, I've been contemplating when the mainstream media will finally say, okay, this is insanity. There's nothing normal about any of this. To be fair, we have seen lots of anchors on places like CNN, and Jake Tapper says things like that. And of course, Rachel Maddow is on MS Now, not MSNBC. They've become MS Now, and on TV you hear that. The Times will continue to play things down the middle, but in their coverage, they'll say that. I also want to quickly talk about the Wall Street Journal. A lot of people dismiss the Wall Street Journal because of their very right wing editorial page. And I tell people that that is not reason. They have excellent reporters who do great journalism. So don't dismiss the Wall Street Journal the way a lot of people are now starting, Neil, to dismiss the Washington Post. As you know, in the new Trump administration, they've gone right wing on the editorial pages, talking about free markets and libertarian stuff, but all of it as a disguise to support the Trump agenda.
The Washington Post, if I remember correctly, was supportive of the attack on Venezuela on their editorial page, when the New York Times was clearly not. And I also remember, I don't know if you, the Wall Street Journal had some recent reporting, again on their news page, not the editorial. I think may also been their editorial page, that was very critical of Trump. So I think that some of these lines are moving a little bit. Um, I think the final comment I would make is that it just shows that we need to to look at all of the news and all of the coverage with a critical eye, and really understand what we're reading, and have a better sense, uh, a better way of telling when there's different disinformation and when there isn't, and make sure we can analyze it for ourselves. We can't just read the paper and accept it as the truth, 100%, and go on with our day. We need to read it, think about it, analyze it, talk about it, and then think about it some more.
I agree, but we don't have the time to do that. I want to make a comment about an interaction I had with a call center operator. Our Spectrum internet was in and out, spotty. So I called at about 5:30 a.m. today. The This is how America has changed. The call center person says, "Hi, I'm Jenny." Let's say. In Kansas City, right? Making sure you know that this is an American uh, uh, operator, not someone in India or the Philippines. And then we got to talking because we're waiting for my phone. And so I asked about working the overnight shift, and she says she works the overnights, and then her kids are in a 24-hour daycare center, and then her mother, who works a swing shift, takes care of them, and all of this life that she has. And at the end of the day, she's probably a Trump voter. The way, you know, this person whose life is being drastically hurt by Trump policies is likely to be someone who is supporting Trump, even though raising the minimum wage, which is, as you know, nationally 7.25, hasn't been changed since 2009, $7.25, which to our international viewers may seem very high, but very, very low in the U.S. It needs, ideally, it would be $20, $25. So many policies that Trump is implementing are affecting her life badly, but she is, someone who could be supporting Trump. Here is the New York Times Magazine cover. And this is about a show that I've not watched that a lot of people love and might win a Golden Globe tonight. We should tell people about the Golden Globes. That's tonight. We have an Oscar preview, though, in a minute. And it says, with the pit, Noah Wiley turned One Day in an ER into an epic season of TV. Can he do it again? And I am not a pit watcher, though I don't mind medical shows. I never got into ER, and the young George Clooney, who many people here will remember and might be swooning at the thought of young George Clooney. But this is a show that Neil gave a thumbs up to. So tell us about the show.
It's a great show. It last year was the first season. It covers, each episode is 1 hour in the ER, at a hospital in Pittsburgh. And yeah, some people have talked about it, referred to it as a reboot of ER. It's just fast paced. The dialogue is good. It does get a little bit uh, gory for my taste in terms of what you see in terms of surgery fields, etc. But it's just there's some just great character development, and it does. I want to make sure it doesn't get into the ER Grey's Anatomy type of every disaster possible visits this one hospital. But so far so good.
And the pit, I presume, is it's in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And also, what about the Grey's Anatomy? Famously, all the doctors and nurses and everyone was sleeping with each other. And is that part of the
We're
storyline?
we're not seeing that in the pit.
Okay.
Um,
There's an old show which will most almost no one here has heard of, called Saint
Saint
Elsewhere,
Elsewhere.
which was the first, I believe, of the really gritty hospital dramas. And it's available, I think, on Prime, or one of these shows. One of these channels has the back catalog, and you can see where a lot of these shows have descended from Saint Elsewhere. And I think it's a hospital called Saint Elgius, or some name like that, and they used to call it Saint Elsewhere because the poor were being served there. Pradnya says that she likes the pit, and that the pit is excellent, and that Noah Wiley is aging like fine wine. Let's take a look. Is he? Yes, he is. I agree.
What
Uh,
one comment, Sree, just this comment talk more about independent digital media streams and the use of investigative journalists like ProPublica. That's the future of trustworthy content. That comment comes from our good friend Walter Grayson on LinkedIn. Occasionally, LinkedIn doesn't show us the profile picture and name, but that's why I'm here to take a quick look and figure out who that is.
And thank
Um,
you, Walter, for your great support of everything we do, and of course the Graphic History Company. We are truly appreciative. But he is right. There are so many good digital content providers, including ProPublica, which is at this point not just mainstream media. It is traditional media, in the sense that it goes with serious journalism, real reporting, stats, facts, etc. Mary C. Curtis, I believe normalizing armed militia on U.S. streets is a precursor to actions at polling places in certain neighborhoods in certain states during the midterm intimidation. I hope you're wrong, but I fear you are right. We have so many comments coming in, folks. We want to show you as much as we can. Jonathan's always listening. National Purple Day is March 26th. So it probably isn't a Sunday, but we might threaten to wear that when we are together. As much as I appreciate Jeff Jarvis, I think he's a tad over intense and critical of the times. And Jeff is a great example of someone who is critical. And I'd like to book Jeff, or there are several other people who are very critical, and have them here so we can have that back and forth with them. Pradnya says, I actually like the Wall Street Journal coverage. There's a special weekend in Chicago across party lines is crucial to protect everyone's rights, especially against state violence. Historians are rallying to defend education everywhere. Thank you. I believe that's Walter as well.
that's
Thank
Walter.
you. Thank you for that. As a historian, you know what we are doing. Simon's pointing out that Joe Biden had a $25 million reward on Maduro. Absolutely true. I think he's referring to the fact that we were, so many people are angry about this, and this is a Trump problem. No, this is a U.S. versus versus another country. But the fact that we woke up last Saturday, Neil, to owning Venezuela, and every other president has had the somewhat decency to pretend it's about human rights, democracy, going back to Mossadegh and the terrible things America unleashed by the CIA, removing Mossadegh in Iran and installing the Shah. They've at least pretended, Neil. And Trump is not pretending. The journalists keep saying, "Sir, is it about democracy? Is it about this?" No, it's about the oil. It's about the oil.
I was up early Saturday morning when I saw the coverage. First that there were bombs going off, and then that we had captured Maduro, and I couldn't believe it. I will say, Sree, we took 2 weeks off for the holidays. But as Sunday morning was rolling around, I'm thinking, oh, if only we had a show this morning to talk about all this. It definitely was uh, an incredible news day. I do want to point out that the our good friend Sarah Barr, who was a guest on our show, did a great piece on the evolution of the front page of last Sunday's paper, based on the evolving story in Venezuela. They had a plan for the front page, and they had to scrap it. They had to scrap it like a noon, 5 o'clock, and 8 p.m. edition. So it's definitely worth taking a look at.
No, thank you for that. That's great to know about that. And there's so much we want to cover. I want to thank Smithin who's watching and via LinkedIn. Folks, we're live on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on Digimentors.group. Go to Digimentors.group so you can get the special PDF of the 8-page New York Times section about Ukraine, which we will look at in a few minutes. Smithin and I met in Mumbai several years ago. Neil, this is when it was about 3 weeks before lockdown, and the world was so different. And here is that printed special edition available as a PDF only here with us. Go to digimentors.group, look for the New York Times read along, look for this episode, click download, or follow Neil on Twitter. He's at Neil Parekh or at Sree, and you will see a link to it so you can download it, send it to your friends to understand the separation that has happened in between the partnership of the U.S. and Ukraine. So thank you for that. For that, Neil. We had a comment earlier, Naomi, talking about the Guardian, an independent paper, offers balance, nuance, and equality when mainstream media continues to disappoint, and they have a U.S. edition as well. So that's worth knowing about. Prajna says, I rely on the Guardian and BBC, although my progressive friends in the UK feel they're too right wing. Oh my God. Oh, the BBC. Yeah, the BBC has gotten in trouble because they've been accused of that. But at the same time, Trump is suing them for $1 billion because of an edit on one of their pieces. People have lost their ability to think for themselves and believe everything they see on the news. That's true on the right and the left. Neil, as you may recall, I hosted a radio show during the pandemic on WBAI, a progressive radio station, and that horseshoe theory of the left and right meeting, we'd have
Yeah,
the same people, I mean, completely different people would call in complaining about the vaccines, complaining about the masks, and they were on opposite sides of the political spectrum. So we certainly see that. Democrats care about people, Republicans care about property. That's an interesting comment. Whenever you see a Donald Trump profile photo, you think it's a Donald Trump supporter, but maybe when you see a photo like that, he's not a Donald Trump or she's not a
probably
Donald
not.
Trump supporter. Oh, speaking of young actors, there's young Denzel in Saint Elsewhere. That is correct. Jonathan Borstein, ProPublica is fantastic. And Pradnya says young Denzel is better than young Clooney. For the young Denzel fans, if you to kind of cross this over to, we have a lot of people who care about Indian Americans and South Asians. They've likely seen or have it or should know about Mississippi Masala, which is directed by Mira Nair, whose son is now the mayor of New York. And in that, the racism comes through where this family wouldn't accept an African American as their son in law or their daughter's uh, boyfriend, but the person they were not approving of was young Denzel Washington. So the joke is that that's how racist that family was, that even Denzel Washington wasn't good enough to be. And I'm kind of laughing through that because it's obviously you have to laugh at some of these things, otherwise you will be crying. Miriam says, I love the pit. Couldn't wait for it to begin again. Wow, you guys are really fans of this. Do I date myself by saying I watched Saint Elsewhere? I don't remember the spelling of the actual name. Could you address how the ownership of a newspaper affects its content? I'm trying not to give money to companies that blatantly support the current administration, so I have been leaning on independent news sites like the Midas Touch. Midas Touch is I see it all on Twitter, and they do a really good job of criticizing the Trump administration, but often with their own words. They are very good at clipping what's in what's said by the administration and just playing it, and often just hearing the words you understand the level of insanity of this administration. So thank you, Susan. And Midas Touch, spelt that way, I guess it's like Medias Touch, is the right pronunciation. Just check that out. And Jonathan's on the purple case. National Purple Day will be covered on the show in March. Let's see here. What else can I look at? Diane is watching. The change in Postal Service verification of when it is received and should cause concern for mail-in voters. That cannot be emphasized enough. If you are mail-in voters, best to drop off way in advance of a voting deadline. So very important. Thank you, Diane. There's so much going on. We just cannot cover it all. The U.S. Postal Service for years has accepted that if you drop it in the mailbox, it will count towards your vote. Now they have changed it. It's only when it arrives in the postal office that it will count. And this sounds like a minor thing, but it could affect thousands, hundreds of thousands of voters, millions of voters, especially in an aging country. So thank you for that. Miriam says it's about greed, pure and simple, at least on the part of Trump. Everything about him is about greed of one kind or another and theft, including glory. Thank you. Over to you, Neil. Your thoughts?
The last comment before we get there's also a newspaper today, I believe. There is. I was going to say that Washington and I believe Oregon do all of their voting by mail. So that's a. It seems like it's a direct, not just people who choose to do absentee ballots, but it's a direct attack on voting in Washington and Oregon.
I did not realize that. That's a wow. So you, even if you wanted to go stand in line, you couldn't.
They don't. They don't have. I mean, they
Wow.
mail every voter a ballot and tell them to mail it back in.
That's incredible. I'm kind of shocked about that. Here's the book review of the New York Times, and on the cover is Hannah Arendt is not your icon. 50 years after her death, the German-born political thinker has been enshrined as a prophet for our times. What did she actually say? So that's from my one of my former students, Jennifer Zalai, wrote that piece. So I look forward to seeing that. And we mentioned the Oscars. The Golden Globes are tonight, but the Oscars are in early Feb. I think Neil will tell us the date. And on the cover, it looks like a young or current Noah Wiley, but it's not. It's Wagner Moura, the lead of the Brazilian political thriller The Secret Agent, is reaching new career highs while sticking to his convictions. Like most movies, most years I've seen almost no Oscar nominees, but usually I like to at least see one of them before Oscar night. So I have a few days. And the top 10 films of 2025 Golden Globe nominee on the back here is these are the different movies. I guess these are the five. I'm trying to tell what this is. Is this, sorry, is this F1? It's an ad for one movie and it's for F1. Oh, there it is. It's so subtle that I didn't notice this is an ad for F1. I know my friends and relatives who love that movie. So if you haven't seen it, you can. So this is the Oscar preview of Arts and Leisure. And Metropolitan cover is 27 million fewer since congestion pricing began 1 year ago. About 11% of the vehicles that once entered Manhattan Central District have disappeared. Wow, that is huge. Neil, are they considering? Do you know if they're considering congestion pricing in
Not that I know of.
in DC? So that's some headline, isn't it? 27 million fewer cars. That means fewer emissions, fewer accidents, fewer problems on the street. So
As a resident of New York City, Sree, I won't tell people where you live, but have you noticed the difference in your neck of the woods? You're in that zone, I believe, right, of reduced.
yeah, right. Well, yeah, well, we can show people we live right near the UN. Let's see if
Yeah,
I can show
turn
them.
your camera on.
Oh,
You have to
sorry.
turn this.
Turn my camera on. Sorry. That's there you go. There's the UN. So yeah, we have noticed that. And as you may know, I cycle everywhere. I don't use the subway as much because we're further away from the subway, and it's definitely better. But it's of course too many cars still. Let's see here. Don Pollard says Mark Peterson took the photos in the New York Times Magazine. He's done incredible documentation of our times. That's one great photographer, Don, who photographs for the Met, for the governor's office, for news. Praising another photographer. So Don, please tell him that we talked about Mark on the show. Let's see.
Talking about photographers, Sree, there's another great insider piece earlier this week. Doug Mills was there for the 2-hour interview with the New York Times that President Trump gave. Just earlier this week, there were 4 reporters that had 2 hours with the president. And Doug Mills, who famously took the pictures of President Trump when he was shot in Pennsylvania, um, expected to be kicked out of the room after the first few minutes. He was allowed to stay for 2 hours. He took 3,700 pictures that day, and there's a whole great article about how he approached that assignment, what he did when he got all of the shots that he needed to get. He started getting creative and taking pictures of President Trump through a water glass, etc. I'll share that article in the comments as well.
Thank you, Neil. We have so many comments today. Thank you all for being with us. Please hit share right now. Your friends can watch us later on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on digimentors.group. And if you go to digimentors.group, you can get the special PDF of the Oscar, not the Oscar section, the Ukraine section, the 8-page special report in the New York Times. So that's something you might want to collect. It's something you might want to show younger people in your lives or people who don't read the news, and then stick it on WhatsApp and just spread it so that people see it. So many comments coming in. I'm sorry we're not able to get to all the comments. And I should say that as looking at the YouTube comments, and sometimes you shouldn't look, Neil. There are trolls on the right that we showed you one, but there are lots of trolls on the left as well, saying things that we do not want to share right now. Susan says, congestion pricing was part of our decision to give up our apartment in the city. It was a second home to us for 10 years, but that along with rent and parking made expense unsustainable for my husband and I. I'm sorry that you had to leave, Susan, but I totally understand that if you are a car person, then you live and work with the car, so you have to use it the way you do. So we totally understand that. And so many comments coming in, Neil. I just cannot keep
I
up with
was
it. I'm just
I
going to
was going
say
to make it.
about yeah.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. Mississippi Masala Denzel puts Sarita Chaudhary equals too much good looking for a screen to handle.
On the comment about YouTube, I just want to point out, because our good friend Ted is watching on YouTube, it's important to note that one of the changes we have to our production platform is that we're streaming both to YouTube in its traditional horizontal format and YouTube Shorts in the vertical format. So those comments that you're seeing, Sree, are actually coming from the Shorts version, which is more viral and gets a little bit more exposure than the traditional horizontal YouTube. People can watch YouTube on their TV, in the horizontal format. It's a really nice way of taking in the show. But the YouTube Shorts attracts a different audience, a newer audience, and some of those comments that you're seeing are coming from there.
And why? How would our my former student Vadim Lavrusik runs YouTube Shorts, so there's a question for him. We worked together with him, Neil. I thought shorts were shorts, so ours is a 1 hour show. How does that work?
Yeah, I think that the definition and the understanding of video content is changing. It's, for example, Facebook now, when you do a live stream or upload any video, they call it a reel, regardless of the provenance or the length. And I'm guessing that YouTube is doing something similar, where they're just calling any vertical video a short, even if it's not short.
Got it. We have about 10 minutes left, and the Sunday business cover is the man who could be Apple's next CEO, John Ternus, a low profile but influential executive, could replace the company's longtime chief executive, Tim Cook, if he steps aside. I wonder if being called out like this helps his case or hurts his case, because now everyone knows who to go after and to target. And I will say about Tim Cook, that's an executive I have long admired. Again, did not know him before the last days of Steve Jobs. He was low key but influential, and he has to kowtow to no one in the world, and he has turned into a full blown sycophant of Donald Trump. This is one of the most powerful people in the world has decided that he has to go into the White House, give gold plated gifts or solid gold gifts, God knows. And it's just kind of sad, but an important story of what happens at Apple affects so much of the world. Let's see the Sunday Styles cover. Ooh, look at that. This is Streetwear has lost its thrill. Cortez restored it. Clint Ogbena's brand thrives on spontaneity. And this is the Sunday Styles cover. Tech seeks its own love matches. In Silicon Valley, the messy matters of the heart are being streamlined with data input. This reminds me of our friend uh, who Amy Webb, the futurist, who we met in Dubai covering the Dubai Future Forum, Neil. She wrote a book about how she programmed her swipes and her look for a match in a way that she was able to land the perfect guy she wanted. So look for her book. Her name is Amy Webb, Webb with two B's. Definitely take a look. Jay Polaki says a gold MacBook perhaps is what he has gotten, but he doesn't use a computer. He doesn't know how to use a computer. So what will he do? He's, as you remember, Kurt Anderson called him out so long ago as a short-fingered vulgarian in the pages of Spy magazine. So he wouldn't be able to use a computer even if he wanted to. Folks, there's so many new people watching, so let's tell everybody. That's Neil Parekh. I'm Sree Srinivasan. Neil in DC. I'm in New York. I'm the former chief digital officer of the city of New York, of Columbia University, and of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And we together, Neil and I, we run Digimentors, which is our social digital AI consulting training company. We do live events like this. If you'd like your own podcast, please contact us, especially in this very unusual way that we do it. And we're proud of this. And Neil is a long time journalist, comms expert, and ran internal comms for the world's largest charity, United Way Worldwide. And we are so lucky that we're able to work together. And for the people that don't understand why you started working with me on the New York Times, tell us that very touching story about your dad.
Sure. I mentioned it earlier in the program. We talked about our long relationship with the New York Times. I grew up reading the New York Times in New York. Grew up outside New York City. My father read the New York Times. All of my family, uncles, cousins, etc., aunts. But specifically, my for my father, he passed away. He passed away about 16 years ago, and one of his last wishes was to be cremated with a Sunday, a copy of the Sunday New York Times in his casket. Just speaks to the depth of our relationship with the Times.
That's beautiful, Neil. Every time you tell that story, I get a little tingle of kind of thinking about not just the Times. Obviously, it's about relationships. It's about the things in our lives. It's about dads and sons and
Well, and
all of that. So,
you knew my dad very well
yes,
as well. So
it, you knew my dad before you knew me, and I knew your dad before I knew you.
exactly.
And here it says, Jonathan, given his use of smartphones, which are computers of a sort, perhaps that observation is no longer valid, says Jonathan. Fair enough. He does use a smartphone, though I've never seen him actually press the buttons. So I do want to hear about that. I know he talks on it all the time. He calls Sean Hannity at 9 p.m. I mean, not 9 p.m. at midnight, and they talk. And Jay says that he gets it just to show it off, and the gold MacBook. And John Pradnya says all of the tech leaders are playing both sides of the street. Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai too, and that's really sad that they're doing it. They don't need to do it. How touching, Neil! Your dad sounds just like my dad. Thank you, Jay, for that, and for all of you watching. This is a fun thing we do every week. Sundays 8:30 to 9:30, and it's part of our work at Digimentors to talk about how to fight misinformation and disinformation. We also have a newsletter we want to remind you about, sreenet.substack.com. Everyone's on Substack, of course, and we just did a midweek interview with David Shedd, the former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, and to be able to have him on the show, on that show, to talk about what's happening in Venezuela. He's a Latin American expert. You can find that video. It's available for free on sreenet.substack.com, as is my core newsletter. But this is an example of the bonus content we're creating, and would love for you to consider first subscribing and then upgrading. But you're just subscribing and opening your newsletters helps us make the business case for doing that work. So thank you so much, everyone. The real estate section cover is Martha Plimpton's dream come true. And I don't know who Martha is or what her dream was, but that's the real estate section. And Neil, we have reached almost the end of the hour without actually reading the inside of the Times. So, oops, that's not the inside of the Times. I am going to find it. Here it is. Because I want everyone to go to digimentors.group, go to the read along page, and download your own copy. Maybe that's why we didn't have to talk about it here, because you can get this as an 8-page special edition, a PDF that you can download. Look for the January 11th show and share it with everybody you know, so that they can read what happened to the alliance between the U.S. and Ukraine. Just look at this incredible 8 pages of serious reporting inside the unraveling of the partnership between the two countries. And we know why, and you know why. It's about Putin and Russia and the Trump connection there. But we didn't also mention what else is on the front page. Early comments cast doubts over the ICE inquiry, which I'm writing about in today's newsletter. If you're already a subscriber, you please look in your inbox or look in your spam if it's there. On immigration, Trump is mixing his messages, calls the issues a very ticklish subject. I've never heard him use that word before. And he has a limited vocabulary. So anytime he adds a new word, I am paying attention. Dogs can develop vocabularies like toddlers. Oh my God. I've always heard that they could know 200 words. Our dog Tara, she's available to view on Instagram. She is Tara Beagle NYC, Tara Beagle NYC on Instagram. She understands about 10 words, and then she chooses sometimes to understand a couple or not. My dad always read the Times, but growing up in Queens, that meant Newsday and the Daily News. I started reading the Times when I was paper training my first puppy and realized I got better coverage with the Times than the other papers. Something about the print, I guess. And Neil and I have both been
It was
the New York
thicker.
Times printing plant in New York, in Queens, and have done Facebook Lives from there, the New York Times read along from there with our friend Mike Connors. And news media is important. My grandfather was exiled in Cuba. To Cuba. He started a rebel newspaper and was able to liberate his country from a dictator by informing the public. David, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, and how proud you must be of your grandfather. If you have more on that, please drop a note to Neil at digimentors.group or Sree at digimentors.group. We'd love to hear from you.
And I was just going to say, not all of the comments from YouTube Shorts are of the kind we were seeing earlier that were a little questionable and off the wall. David, thank you so much for finding us. If you haven't seen the show before, we are live almost every Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, looking at the print edition of the Sunday New York Times. We take off for the holidays, so this is our first show for 2026. But hopefully you'll be able to join us next week. And for
And
everyone who is, go ahead.
no, and I want everyone to subscribe to Neil's email update where you'll know what topics we're covering, what guests we have, what plans we have. You'll get the PDF in a link so you can get it right away. So definitely get that, Neil. Go ahead.
And that's actually exactly I was going to say, Sree, that you can send an email to neil@digimentors.group, and I'd be happy to add you to our mailing list so you get informed about upcoming shows. We'll also be doing a special email this week, Sree, with the Ukraine PDF. We don't always do an email on Sunday after the show, but I think it's warranted this week.
Naomi says New York Newsday was a valiant attempt to break into the New York metro scene. It lasted 10 years, which is different from, it's it was the New York City edition of Newsday. Newsday is the paper for Long Island, which is basically its own, city, metro area, country, depending on what you think of Long Island. And David tells us that his grandmother was the last living Taína queen. I feel advocacy for the general public is an unavoidable certainty for me. That's so beautiful. Thank you for telling us. I do. Sorry, I'm reading this kind of live, so it's a little hard to keep up. But we'll be in touch. So please write in to Neil, and we'll read more. Jay says my grandfather was a printer and publisher of Andhra Mitra, a Telugu newspaper in Rangoon, Burma, from 1929 to 1960, and I lived in Burma as a young boy because my dad worked there. And Jay, this is incredible to hear that. And Neil is still recovering from, or he hasn't started recovering from that. So,
Well, my mom was born in Burma, actually,
oh,
and was in in that earlier period. Jay, that's incredible. We definitely want to hear more about that later. It sounds great.
but our time has come to an end, folks. Please follow us on our socials. Please check out digimentors.group. Please check out the Substack at sreenet.substack.com. Please email Neil at digimentors.group with feedback, with ideas, with topics. We don't do guests every show, but we occasionally do guests, and we would love to get your nominations and to hear any thoughts you have. So all three of us, Jay, Neil, and I have a Burma connection, which is amazing. And if you knew Burma before you knew Myanmar, it'll always be Burma to us. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday.
We should also just remind people that in case you joined us late, you will be able to watch the show from the beginning on most of the channels you're watching on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and our Digimentors website. So if you want to go back and catch earlier parts of the show, just like 2 minutes, less than a minute after we're off the air, you'll be able to find the full episode.
I want to end by sharing a couple of these comments. Thank you, Neil. Another really good show. Thank you, Ken. Please share this with your friends. Great and lively show. And let's end on this note from the great Mary C. Curtis. My three eldest siblings, I'm the youngest of five, were civil rights activists. One brother was arrested twice in sit-ins. Not sure Americans realize the sacrifices and how recent that was and how we are experiencing that here. Neil, there was also a comment earlier about the Iran protests, and we didn't get into the paper, so I presume there's coverage inside the paper of Iran about the Iran crisis, and we'll make sure we mention that next Sunday as well. Thank you, everybody. Have a great part of your Sunday and a good week ahead, and pay attention to what's happening around you wherever you live in the world. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.